right side of the decimal point and the left side of the decimal point. Here's a question I ask my students that no one has ever gotten wrong. What's more, a 1 or the 99 here? Everybody says the 1. That's true, and yet everyone knows that 99 is a much bigger number than 1. So what's the difference between this side of the decimal and that? Why is a 1 more than a 99? The difference is this side of the decimal are the part numbers, and this side of the decimal are the whole numbers. Behind this decimal point, I could put 9s from here all the way to the door, and they'd still be less than 1, because the decimal point separates the whole from the part. The left side of the decimal point, the right side of the decimal point are always numbers that are less than 1. Remember, we write our numbers in rows, but each column has a different value. Let's talk about the column values of the decimal point. They're very easy to remember because each decimal point is worth 1 0. 1 decimal place, 1 0 in the bottom. That's 9/10. 2 decimal places, 0.99 is going to be 2 zeros. 99 over 100. Very easy to remember. Each decimal place gets you 1 0. So 0.357, 1, 2, 3 decimal places, make the bottom of the fraction have 3 zeros. Put this number on the top. 0.357 would be 357 thousandths. You'll see this on the worksheet. It's very easy. 0.6875. How many decimal places do you see? A decimal place is any number to the right of the decimal point. 4 places is going to be 4 zeros. What do you call a 1 followed by 4 zeros? 10,000. It's going to be 6,875 over 10,000. Remember, each decimal place gets you a 0 on the bottom of the fraction. Remember, as an aid to memory, there are 4 functions: adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing. As you work through this chapter, remember, adding and subtracting are going to have similar rules. Multiplying and dividing are going to have similar rules. So in your mind, say to yourself, how do I add and subtract decimals? How do I multiply and divide decimals? The reason we use decimals in our money system is because it's the most efficient system of fractions, decimals, and percents. What's the rule when you add and subtract decimals? Line up the decimal point. Here's the thing to know. What do you call a number that doesn't have a decimal? 6.8 has a decimal. The decimal is 0.8. 0.8 is less than 1. 17 has no decimal. What do you call a number that doesn't have a decimal? You call it a whole number. So where does the decimal go? When we add these together, we have to line up the decimal. Here's the little mnemonic to remember. If you can't find it, put it behind it, it being the decimal. This 17, if it were money, we'd put the decimal behind it and add 2 zeros. Remember, if you can't find it, you put it behind it. To add and subtract decimals, you line up the decimal point just like a grocery store receipt or receipt at the store. If you look at your receipt, it goes this way because they line up the decimal point. Where's the 17 going to go? Right here, and the decimal point will be behind it, right here. 0.089, line up the decimal. Now once you line them up, add zeros. So you have the same amount in each column. Once you have your decimal lined up, it's the same rules as whole numbers. Bring down the decimal point. 7 and 6 make 13 and 1. It's 23.889. Line up the decimal. If you have a whole number, and they will give you a whole number on the test to make sure you know where the decimal is, remember, if you can't find it, you put it behind it. Let's do another problem here. Remember, when you add and subtract decimals, you line up the decimal. Here's a decimal point, decimal point, decimal point. I'm going to line them up straight down the way gravity falls. But what about this 9? What do you call a number that doesn't have a decimal point? You call it a whole number. Where would the decimal go? Behind it. If you can't find it, you put it behind it. Let's do it. Let's line these up. What am I going to do with the 9? I'm going to put it over here with the whole numbers, and I'm going to put the decimal behind it. That's the key. If you have an adding or subtracting decimal problem, the way they'll try to catch you on a test is give you a whole number to see if you know where the decimal point goes. Now let's add zeros. You've lined up your decimal point. Now it's no different than a whole number problem. Just add your numbers together same way as you do with whole numbers. Put your decimal, carry 6, 9, and 9 is 18. Carry the 1, 28. Remember, when you add decimals together, line up the decimal. If a number doesn't have a decimal point, what do you call it? A whole number, and you put the decimal behind it.